All right, this section is about other robber barons besides Rockefeller and Carnegie. Okay, we're starting out with one of the richest men in America at the time. He was an investment banker, J.P. Morgan, the guy that bought U.S. Steel from Carnegie in 1901. He actually, once he bought it, he turned it into a company called U.S. Steel, okay, United States Steel. And it became the biggest company in America after that. So you need to know that for the test. Question on the test: who bought Carnegie Steel? And it's J.P. Morgan. Okay. All right. So moving on from there, we got a couple of political cartoons here. Y'all, these political cartoons are most likely you're going to get one of these on the LEAP test. Okay. Pay close attention while I break them down for you. Okay. So who's our railroad robber baron? If you remember from earlier. Well, this guy right here is Cornelius Vanderbilt, okay? So Cornelius Vanderbilt stands here massively tall. He's got his hands on the reins of these trains. He's standing on the tracks, and basically it's saying that this guy right here is controlling the tracks of America. He owned the majority of the tracks in the Northeast, which is the most profitable and richest part of America back then. So that's what that one's about. Let's go on to this one, okay? What is going on here? Now, you will be expected to break these things down yourself, so you need to pay attention, okay? You're gonna have to write about some political cartoons very soon. So in this cartoon, what we do with breaking down political cartoons is we identify all the symbols first, and then we identify the meaning of the cartoon. So let's look at this. Who are these guys up top? Okay. Well, those guys, based on the way they're dressed, they got top hats on, they got tuxedos on, they're sitting on money bags, their stomach is made of money bags, so it's probably robber barons, right? If you look close, it says Vanderbilt. That's this guy, okay? That's the Commodore, that's the guy in charge of railroads. Gould, which is also another railroad robber baron. Fields, okay? If you look at the rest of this, who is supporting them? Okay? Well, you got the toiling masses down here. You got the average Americans. You got probably 100 people under the boat that are raising it out of the water, and they're actually supporting the weight of all the wealth of these robber barons. And if you look closely, okay, it says hard times right here, and there's broken tools in the water. The water looks choppy. The sky is gloomy, okay? So basically, the message of this cartoon is that the robber baron's wealth is supported by the hard labor, the back-breaking labor of the American public. And the robber barons are sitting high and dry, okay? And they're not getting their feet wet, but look at all the Americans. You got 100 Americans standing in a rough economic sea right here. So this is basically the meaning of the Gilded Age, right? You got the robber barons living like kings, while you have the average workers living like dogs here, okay? That's the bad part. I mean, it sounds nice to have your own boat full of gold, right? But does it really sound that nice if you realize that you have all these people supporting that lifestyle and that they're not getting a fair shake? Okay, so that's the point of this cartoon right here. Cornelius Vanderbilt, New York Central Railroad. He's a railroad tycoon that consolidated rail lines. That means you merged them, put them together, and improved safety. So he's not all bad, guys. I mean, he did provide a valuable service to the American public, and he did improve railroad safety by implementing a lot of things like standardized time. We talked about that. Also, those air brakes that we talked about as well. Okay. So another robber baron is E.C. Knight. Okay, he's the sugar guy, the sugar daddy. Okay. So this is E.C. Knight back here, down here. You can tell he likes sugar, right? Anyway, so E.C. Knight did not grow sugar per se, okay? E.C. Knight refined every single grain of sugar in the United States. He had a complete monopoly on that business, okay? So as time goes on, Americans get sick of the robber barons. They're getting sick of them taking advantage of the system being lopsided and uneven. So by 1890, America wants the government to stop the robber barons. And they want fair and open competition. They want the end of monopolies, okay? Americans want competition to bring down prices. Because if I have 20 different companies that refine sugar, I get to pick the cheapest one, right? Well, E.C. Knight took away that choice. He had all the companies that refine sugar in one trust company. So what happens is, in 1890, America's Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act. Now, this will be with us as a question for multiple chapters, so you might as well really key in right here and really understand this act, because it's going to be a major player in destroying the robber barons' empires, okay? So, 1890 Sherman Antitrust Act. So what's trust company mean? A trust is a monopoly, right? Okay. So what would the Antitrust Act mean? It's basically saying it's an anti-monopoly act, right? We're going to bust up the trust companies. So Section 1 of the Sherman Antitrust Company says, every contract, combination in the form of trust or otherwise, or conspiracy in restraint of trade, okay, so you're planning to stop trade, or commerce, which is also trade, basically, for money, among several states or within foreign nations is hereby declared illegal. So here's what it's saying. If you make a plan to stop or limit or affect trade or commerce, then that is illegal. All right, so in 1890, they passed this thing, okay? Well, it doesn't exactly work at first, okay? We'll talk about it right here, okay? So, in the U.S. versus E.C. Knight, now this is 11 years after the Sherman Antitrust Act actually happened. The Supreme Court finally got to use the Sherman Antitrust Act in the correct way. See, if you pass a law that says all robber barons have to stop being robber barons, you know, none of them can have a trust company. Robber barons are going to fight back with the only weapon they have, money, because money equals power in this case. So for the first 10 years of the Sherman Antitrust Act, basically people got paid off, people got kickbacks, payola, whatever you want to call it, and they made the Sherman Antitrust Act illegitimate, okay? So if we look back up here, okay, it's saying if you're having a conspiracy, if you are planning on stopping trade or commerce, then you are in violation. Well, what the robber barons did is they paid off the Supreme Court in order to make sure that what their interpretation was is that the Sherman Antitrust Act was not actually made for trust companies, which is idiotic because it says Sherman Antitrust Act in the name. Instead, they said that the people that were planning to affect trade were the labor unions who were going on strike, because that affects trade, that affects commerce, that affects buying goods if you're going on strike. So this actually, for the first 11 years of its life, the Sherman Antitrust Act made unions illegal. But in 1901, things changed. The Supreme Court finally ruled that basically control of sugar refining doesn't restrain interstate trade, which basically means he has to break up his trust company, okay? This allowed trusts to become more aggressive through the creation of holding companies. The Sherman Antitrust Act's failure is that business used the act to stop unions from going on strike since they stopped trade. So two things happened. It made unions illegal at first, but then eventually it worked whenever they broke up E.C. Knight's empire in 1901. But the thing right here, see, if you say I can't have a trust company, See, what the robber barons did, they paid off the right people and said, okay, all right, we don't have trust companies anymore. Now we have holding companies, which, by the way, they're the same thing. They just simply changed the name in a shell game, and now all trust companies become holding companies, and they work the exact same way, okay? So initially, the Sherman Antitrust Act failed because the Supreme Court got paid off. That's what you need to know for this chapter. We're gonna have this come up in 2 or 3 more chapters, okay? So, all right. All right, we're gonna stop it there for this video.